I'm going to be completely honest with you. When I first saw the humans slumped against the cargo bay wall of our diplomatic shuttle, bleeding all over my freshly sanitized floor panels, my first thought wasn't concern. It was annoyance. Do you have any idea how hard it is to get human blood out of Bracarian mesh weaving? It's impossible. Absolutely impossible, but then I saw the tattoo, small thing, really. Black ink, faded around the edges, sitting right there on the side of his neck where everyone could see it. Just one word in their strange Earth alphabet, medic. Oh, thank the 7 moons, I muttered to my co-pilot, Trevnik. At least we picked up someone useful. Get the medical kit. This one can patch himself up. Trevnik, bless his 3 hearts, actually laughed at that. The sound came out like gravel in a waste processor. Kessa, look at him. He's barely conscious. Fair point. The human's eyes were doing that thing where they couldn't quite focus, rolling around like loose bearings in his skull. His skin had gone a color I can only describe as wrong. Too pale. Humans aren't supposed to look like that. They're supposed to be all warm and pink and annoyingly energetic. This one looked half dead, grabbed the medical kit anyway, because apparently I'm not completely heartless despite what my sister says, and crouched down next to him. Up close, I could see more. The standard issue jacket, torn and scorched. The emergency beacon still blinking weakly on his belt. And the scars. Oh, the scars, they weren't medical scars. I know medical scars. I've seen what happens when a Verkarian gets caught in an engine blast or takes a plasma bolt to the torso. These were different. Precise. Deliberate. The kind of scars you get from someone who knows exactly where to cut to cause maximum damage without killing you immediately. Hey, I said, tapping his shoulder. Hey, human. Can you hear me? His eyes snapped to mine so fast I actually flinched. And suddenly, those unfocused eyes weren't unfocused anymore. They were sharp. Alert. Calculating. Like someone had just flipped a switch inside his head. Water, he croaked. Right. Water. Trevnik, get him water. I started scanning him with the medical scanner, watching the readings pop up on the small screen. You're going to be fine. We're 3 hours from the nearest station. Just stay awake and try not to die on my clean floor. He actually smiled at that. A tiny, painful thing that looked like it cost him everything. Can't make any promises. What happened to you? I asked, pressing a coagulation patch against the worst of the bleeding on his side. Your distress beacon said mechanical failure, but this looks like you went 10 rounds with a Crothian battle squad. Something like that, he said, helpful. Real helpful. Trevnik came back with the water, and the human drank like he'd been stranded in a desert for a week. Probably had been, knowing how humans get themselves into trouble. They're notorious for it. Absolutely notorious. They'll see a warning sign that says danger, do not enter, lethal radiation and think, well, that sounds interesting. Your tattoo, I said, pointing at his neck. It says you're a medic. Used to be. Used to be? You can't used to be a medic. It's not like being a pilot or a trader. Once you know how to save lives, you don't just stop. He looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes that made my scales prickle. Something old. Something tired. Something that had seen too much and wanted desperately to unsee it. Sure you can, he said quietly. You just decide one day that you're done saving lives and start taking them instead. The silence that followed that statement was so thick you could cut it with a plasma torch. Trevnik and I exchanged glances. The kind of glance that says, we might have just picked up a complete psychopath. But the human was already bleeding out on our floor, and it's not like we could just dump him out the airlock. That would be rude. Also illegal. Mostly illegal. So what do we call you? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Since you're bleeding all over my shuttle and all. Marcus. My name's Marcus. He winced as I applied another patch. And before you ask, yes, I was a combat medic. Earth Defense Corps. Served for 12 years before I decided I'd had enough. 12 years, Trevnik echoed. That's a long time for a human. I thought your military contracts were shorter. They are. Usually. I kept re-enlisting. Marcus closed his eyes. Stupid, in retrospect. Why'd you leave? I couldn't help asking. Look, I know it wasn't my business, but curiosity is a Verkarian trait. We can't help ourselves. It's genetic. Marcus was quiet for so long I thought he'd passed out. Then, just when I was about to check his pulse, he spoke. Because one day I realized I'd saved the same soldier 3 times. Patched him up, sent him back to the front lines, patched him up again. 3rd time, I couldn't save him. And I thought, what's the point? What's the point of being good at keeping people alive if all you're doing is sending them back to die? Heavy. That was heavy. The kind of heavy that makes you want to change the subject immediately and maybe never bring it up again, but I didn't get the chance, because that's when the proximity alarm started screaming. Multiple contacts, Trevnik said, his voice tight. Small fighters. Unknown configuration. They're coming in fast. I felt my blood go cold. Well, colder than usual. Verkarian blood runs pretty chilly to begin with. Pirates? Worse. Those are Haxon signatures. Marcus sat up so fast I thought he'd tear the coagulation patches right off. Haxon? Here? They're supposed to be 3 sectors away. Yeah, well, apparently they didn't get the memo. I was already moving to the cockpit, Trevnik right behind me. Strap in, human. This is about to get bumpy. Wait, Marcus said, and there was something in his voice that made me stop. What are you hauling? What? Your cargo. What are you hauling? Because Haxon raiders don't waste time on random diplomatic shuttles unless there's something valuable aboard. I stared at him. Medical supplies. We're transporting medical supplies to the Outer Rim colonies. Vaccines, mostly. Some surgical equipment. Marcus started laughing. Actually laughing, which seemed incredibly inappropriate given that we were about to be blown to bits by alien pirates. Of course. Of course it's medical supplies. The universe has a sick sense of humor. I don't see what's funny about this. You wouldn't. He was on his feet now, swaying slightly but standing. How many fighters? 4, Trevnik said. Maybe 5. It's hard to get an exact count. Weapons? We have exactly 1 plasma cannon that hasn't been properly calibrated in 6 months and might explode if we try to use it. Marcus nodded like this was exactly what he expected. Okay. Okay, here's what we're going to do. You 2 get to the cockpit and prepare to run. Maximum thrust. Don't stop, don't slow down, just run. And what are you going to do? I asked. He smiled again, and this time it wasn't painful. This time it was something else entirely. Something predatory. Remember how I said I used to save lives? Yeah? Well, I learned some other skills along the way. That's when I noticed his hands. They weren't shaking anymore. They were steady. Perfectly, unnaturally steady. The hands of someone who'd done very bad things and gotten very good at them. The cargo bay has external access panels, Marcus said, moving toward the back of the shuttle with purpose. If I can get to them, I can rig something. Buy you time to get away. That's suicide, Trevnik said flatly. Probably. But those vaccines? They're for kids, aren't they? Outer Rim colonies, that means frontier settlements. New families. Children who need those shots or they die from about 100 different diseases. I didn't answer. Didn't need to. He already knew. Yeah, Marcus said softly. That's what I thought. So here's the thing about being a medic. You take an oath. First, do no harm. But there's a second part everyone forgets. Protect those who cannot protect themselves. He looked back at us one more time. I might not be a medic anymore, but I remember my oaths. 3 things you need to understand about Haxon raiders. First, they don't negotiate. Second, they don't take prisoners. Third, they really don't like it when you shoot at them. Which is exactly what Marcus was doing 30 seconds after we'd told him his plan was absolutely insane. He's going to get us all killed, I said, watching the tactical display as the Haxon fighters swarmed closer. Technically, we were already going to die, Trevnik pointed out. Now we might only probably die. That's an improvement. I hate it when he's logical. Through the cargo bay camera feed, I could see Marcus working. And by working, I mean tearing apart our emergency supply containers like they'd personally offended his ancestors. He'd rigged something, some kind of improvised explosive device using the oxygen canisters and what looked like half our electrical wiring. The man was either brilliant or completely unhinged. Possibly both. Kessa, his voice crackled over the internal comms. When I say run, you run. Don't hesitate, don't look back, just punch it to maximum thrust and get those vaccines where they need to go. You know you're going to die, right? I said, because apparently I needed to state the obvious. Yeah, probably. But I've been dying slowly for 3 years now. Might as well make it count for something. The first Haxon fighter came in close, probably trying to disable our engines with a precision shot. They like to do that. Disable you first, then board at their leisure and take whatever they want. Very methodical. Very efficient. Very annoying. Marcus waited until it was almost on top of us. Then he opened the cargo bay door, in the vacuum of space. With him inside. Without a proper suit. Is he insane? Trevnik shouted. Apparently. But Marcus wasn't getting sucked out. He'd magnetic locked his boots to the floor, and he was wearing an emergency breather mask that gave him maybe 90 seconds of air. 90 seconds to do whatever crazy thing he was planning. The Haxon fighter pilot must have been confused, because he actually slowed down. Probably wondering what kind of idiot opens their cargo bay in the middle of a firefight. Marcus showed him exactly what kind. Launched the improvised device straight at the fighter, using what looked like a cargo launcher we kept for emergency supply drops. The canister sailed through space, spinning end over end, looking completely harmless, right up until it hit the fighter's intake vent and exploded. The fighter didn't just explode. It disintegrated. Turned into an expanding cloud of debris and superheated plasma that lit up our sensors like a small sun. Holy moons, I whispered. The other Haxon fighters immediately changed tactics, spreading out and coming in from multiple angles. They weren't confused anymore. They were angry. Marcus, get back inside. I yelled into the comms. Can't. Only got one more shot at this. He was building another device. Faster this time, his hands moving with practiced efficiency even in the freezing vacuum. The emergency breather was blinking red, warning that his air was running out. 40 seconds. Maybe 30.2 fighters came in simultaneously from different vectors. Classic pincer movement. One would draw his attention while the other took the shot. Professional. Coordinated. Deadly. Marcus threw the second device at the closer fighter. It dodged, just like they'd planned. The device sailed past harmlessly into empty space, except it wasn't harmless. And Marcus hadn't missed. The device detonated right between both fighters, and the electromagnetic pulse it generated fried every system within 50 meters. Both fighters went dark, tumbling through space like dead metal coffins. How did he do that? Trevnik was staring at the screens in disbelief. Combat medic, he said. I was already firing up the engines to maximum. Apparently that means something different for humans than it does for everyone else. Marcus stumbled back from the cargo bay door, his movements sluggish now. The cold was getting to him. The lack of air was getting to him. He collapsed just as the bay door sealed shut with a hiss of pressurization. The remaining Haxon fighters were pulling back, probably reassessing whether this particular target was worth the trouble. Smart choice. I would have done the same. Trevnik, get us out of here. I'm going to check on our suicidal passenger. I found Marcus on the cargo bay floor, not moving. The emergency breather had gone completely red. Empty. I yanked it off his face and checked for a pulse. Weak, but there. Humans are surprisingly resilient when they want to be. You absolute idiot, I said, dragging him back toward the medical area. You magnificent, infuriating idiot. His eyes opened halfway. Did it work? You destroyed 3 Haxon fighters with spare parts and oxygen canisters. Yes, it worked. He smiled. A real smile this time, not painful or predatory. Just satisfied. Good. The kids need those vaccines. The kids are going to get their vaccines because apparently I hired the galaxy's most overqualified bodyguard by accident. Didn't hire me. Rescued me, remember? Worst decision I ever made, I muttered, but I was smiling too. Can't help it. There's something about humans that makes you smile even when they're driving you completely insane. I got him stabilized, wrapped in thermal blankets, hooked up to every monitor I had. His vitals slowly climbed back into the normal range, which for humans is apparently barely alive but functional. Their species runs on sheer stubbornness, I swear. 3 hours later, we docked at Frontier Station Epsilon. A collection of habitat modules and mining platforms held together with optimism and structural reinforcement beams. The kind of place where people went to start over or disappear. Sometimes both. The medical coordinator met us at the dock, a tired-looking woman with gray streaks in her hair and gratitude in her eyes. You made it. We'd heard the Haxon were raiding the supply routes. Didn't think anyone would get through. We had help, I said, nodding toward Marcus. He was standing now, still wrapped in a blanket, still looking like death warmed over, but standing. Picked up a hitchhiker. The coordinator looked at him, then at the tattoo on his neck. Her expression changed. Recognition, maybe. Or just understanding. Combat medic? Used to be, Marcus said. We could use someone with your skills. Lost our primary physician last month. Outbreak of Terran flu, and we didn't have the vaccines in time. She gestured toward the station behind her. Not much pay, and the accommodations are basic, but we need someone who knows how to keep people alive in difficult circumstances. Marcus looked at me, then at Trevnik, then back at the coordinator. I'm not that person anymore. I told you. I stopped saving lives. You saved theirs, the coordinator said, nodding toward us. You saved every child on this station who needs those vaccines. Sounds like you're still saving lives to me. That was different. That was just survival. Medicine usually is. The silence stretched out. I could see Marcus thinking, weighing options, fighting some internal battle I couldn't begin to understand. The scars on his arms seemed more visible in the harsh station lighting. Reminders of who he'd been. Who he'd become. I'm broken, he said finally. Quietly. I'm not the person you need. The coordinator smiled. Sad, knowing, but kind. Son, everyone out here is broken. That's why we came to the frontier. We're all trying to put ourselves back together. Might as well do it while helping others, right? Marcus closed his eyes. When he opened them again, something had shifted. Not fixed, not healed, but shifted. Like maybe, just maybe, there was a path forward he hadn't seen before. Okay, he said. Okay. I'll stay. Temporarily. Just until you find someone better. We'll see, the coordinator said, but she was already smiling like she knew he'd be there longer than that, started unloading the medical supplies with Trevnik's help. Heavy work, but satisfying. Knowing these boxes full of vaccines and equipment would save lives. Real, tangible lives Marcus helped, despite still being basically a walking corpse. Stubborn human. They're all stubborn. Every single one. So, I said as we loaded the last container onto the station's cargo platform. You never told us the whole story. What really happened before we found you? He paused, hands on a container of surgical supplies. Ship I was on got ambushed. Crew didn't make it. I activated the beacon and hoped someone friendly would pick me up instead of someone who'd sell me for parts. Lucky us, then. Lucky me, you mean? You could have just left me there. We're not that kind of people, Trevnik said firmly. No one deserves to die alone in space. Marcus looked at both of us for a long moment. Then he extended his hand, that weird human gesture of trust and respect. I took it. His grip was warm, strong despite everything he'd been through. Human handshakes are strange, but I was starting to understand the appeal. Thank you, he said. Simple. Sincere. Don't mention it. Seriously, don't. If anyone asks, we made this run without any problems whatsoever. The last thing I need is a reputation for picking up dangerous humans and letting them blow up pirates with homemade bombs. He laughed. Actually laughed, and it sounded lighter this time. Less haunted. He left him there on Frontier Station Epsilon, watching as we undocked and prepared to jump back to civilized space. The last image I have of him is standing on the observation deck, that tattoo on his neck visible even from a distance. Medic. Used to be. Maybe would be again. Think he'll stay? Trevnik asked as we cleared the station's gravity well. I think he'll try, I said. Humans are good at trying. Even when they think they're broken beyond repair, they keep trying. It's annoying and admirable in equal measure. We should put in a commendation. What he did, taking on those Haxon fighters, that saved more than just us. No commendations. No reports. We picked up a hitchhiker, dropped him at a frontier station, delivered our cargo. That's the story. Why? I looked back at the station, now just a small point of light against the darkness. Because sometimes people need a second chance without everyone knowing about their first chance. Besides, I have a feeling we'll hear about Marcus again someday. Humans like him don't stay quiet for long. Trevnik nodded, understanding without needing more explanation. Good co-pilot. Great co-pilot, actually. As we jumped to hyperspace, I found myself thinking about that tattoo. About scars that tell stories we don't want to remember. About oaths that stay with you even when you think you've left them behind, the ink on his neck said medic. But the scars underneath, the ones you couldn't see, they told a different story. A story about someone who'd learned to kill in order to save lives, who'd walked away from everything, and who'd found a reason to come back. Maybe that's what humans do best. They break, they fall apart, but then they find some impossible reason to put themselves back together and keep going. Annoying species. Absolutely annoying. But I wouldn't have it any other way.